First of all, thank you very much to all of you that are here to accompany us in this very interesting call. We have a very diverse panel with us in this conversation. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Carlos Parker. I am from Chile, originally from Chile, currently living in Romania. I am the International Business Development Manager for Arxia. I have my background is in international sales and international business development. I've been working for many years in several countries, building networks for companies. I've worked for a year in Angola, in Africa. I've worked for some other time in Uruguay, Chile, and now Romania. Working, as I said, with Arxia. And with us, we have Abdulhamid Kwieder, that he's from Damascus, Syria, and living now in Vienna, Austria, working at Earlybird. He has worked in different countries, and he is now working for 3 years with TYPO3 CMS, and started the project TYPO3 Arabic to translate the TYPO3 CMS into the Arabic language. And also pushing to let the TYPO3 community grow in the Arabic countries. He has worked. He has working, as I said, with the TYPO3 CMS for 3 years. And we have also Oduor Jagero. Oduor is the founder of CMS Africa and the CEO of Coa Media. And he is a huge activist for open source softwares with a huge bias, as he says, into the CMSs. He lives in Nairobi, Kenya, and also he is a coder, a speaker, and a novelist. We also have with us Chris Krupa. Chris is originally German and lived for the last 12 years in Vietnam. He runs an agile coaching business supporting mostly international investment into Vietnam, and therefore constantly deals with all the challenges of development of common agile mindset on top of different cultures and time zones. And we have also Thomas Wiemann, a program manager with experience in multicultural setting, especially in Europe, Asia, and Africa. Currently reporting to the government CIO of Rwanda as digitalization expert and bridging the cultural differences between Europe and Africa and giving guidance on strategic government projects. Thank you very much to all of you. First, I would like to contextualize this discussion by sharing an anecdote. I had a friend in Chile that was working on an international project with a company from Mexico. And while doing the project, the counterpart that he had on Mexico, the teammate, they were talking one day and he told him that he was going to call him ahorita. And ahorita, it's a word that it's a derivative from the word ahora, that means now, but it means literally now. And as a Chilean, I know that the word now means literally now, that I'm going to call you now. So as I would have done, my friend just waited for the call to happen in the next few seconds. And then 5 minutes happened, 10 minutes happened, 10 minutes happened, 15 minutes and nothing. So kind of upset, he called this guy and told him, okay, dude, I've been waiting for you for quite some time. You told me that you were going to call me now. What he didn't know is that for Mexicans and for Central Americans in general, the word ahorita has a completely different meaning. The word now for them can mean now, can mean in a few minutes, or can mean in an undetermined amount of time in the future. So this is even though it's a funny story, it can tell us a lot of what it is to work in cross-cultural working environment. Because these nuances show us a lot of what people expect from each other and what people understand. I mean, culture in the end shapes the way we see the world. And because of that, it shapes also the way that we see work, that we see working things, that we see responsibility, that we see authority. For instance, in Europe or in Latin America, we have very different perspective of how teamwork should work in terms of authority. For instance, in Latin America, authorities are very well defined. Most of Latin America are very well defined. For instance, the boss is the boss and you should never interrupt him and so on. But in Europe, the tendency right now, especially in Western Europe, the tendency right now is that the work groups are more horizontal, the company structure. So the question now remains that now with the pandemic, remote teams are becoming more and more common. Now distances are completely relativized. They are relative in terms of a person that is 10 kilometers away or that is 1,000 kilometers away. There's not much of a difference. So I believe that remote cross-cultural teams will become more and more common, and this might be particularly more true in the software industry, and particularly in open source. So I would like to discuss and move the conversation in that direction. And since we have such a diverse panel and all of you come from very different backgrounds, some of you are activists, some of you are professionals, programmers, and some of you are coaches, and so on and so on. Some are more linked to the organizations. I will phrase this conversation first asking you personal questions, individual questions, but don't take this as a call so to only for him to answer. It will be first to one person, and then the other ones can chime in anytime to further the conversation. All right. So first, I would like to start asking Abdulhamid. First, I would like you to talk a little bit further about the work that you're doing with TYPO3 in Arabic. What is it that you're doing? Also, as we all know, how do I phrase this? How do you think that Arabic communities can benefit from this? And how do you think that in terms of, as we all know, traditionally the TYPO3 CMS has been encapsulated into the DACH countries, right? So how do you think that the translation to TYPO3 in Arabic would change this? And how do you see that adding more cultural diversity to the TYPO3 community will make it better?
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this amazing meeting in TYPO3. I think that's my first online TYPO3 meeting where I meet a new amazing people and also a lot of friends who I met them before in the last years before COVID-19. So thank you very much. The question, like how I started the TYPO3 Arabic, or from where the idea came, I would say it came from my needs. That since I started to learn the TYPO3 CMS system, I started to look in the internet and Google and look in YouTube for tutorials and some documentations in languages at all. And then I found there is only the German and English language where documentation in those languages, where I had some issue to understand what they mean, or in the video tutorials to understand also what they mean exactly. And I needed really to look for Arabic content or tutorials where I can learn the TYPO3. That was my main issue to find a solution. But of course, in the same time, I got a lot of support from the Earlybird, the company where I am working, and they tried to explain to me. Even it was in the beginning harder for me. You know, I came 2015 to Vienna. Before that, I never know the German language, and we in our company, we are talking in German. And I started in 2017 to work with them. So I had only 3 years practice with German language, which is not that enough to understand everyone and every word they are talking, especially if they are talking in dialect, not in the formal German. So in that, after that issue and that challenges I faced in my work, I started to think like, okay, if I'm facing these challenges right now, so of course there is a lot of people like me from different languages or from like beginners or juniors who are facing also the same challenges. So I started to think, okay, how I can change that. And from my experience in Arabic language, that I know the Arabic language very well, or let me say like enough to talk in the classic Arabic, in the official Arabic language, and also to write. I thought like, okay, let me start to do something in Arabic and to start to translate some documentation, or maybe make a tutorials in Arabic where I'm trying to explain first of all what the TYPO3 means, what's it's working for, because really the internet it's poor in Arabic for the TYPO3. So the idea came from here. Then I started to like to talk with the people, with the TYPO3 association about how I can make it like visible, physical or visible for the people to see it in the internet. And I got a lot of ideas. I put them all together in one plate or in one place, and I started to think, okay, let me do first of all the Facebook page, which is in Arabic. It's similar to the Facebook to the TYPO3 Facebook page. Just the difference is it's in Arabic, and I started to translate the blogs or the newsletter, which is coming from the TYPO3 website. Yeah, and I got a lot of idea also from my work, where my chef said to me, okay, we need also to translate, like if you are translating the TYPO3 set, the TYPO3 system, you're gonna to help more the people who are working already in TYPO3 panel, like the back end of TYPO3, and they can, like, if they have the back end in Arabic, so it would be also easy for them to understand what it does mean and how they can make their work also directly without asking or looking too much in the internet. So that was for the TYPO3 Arabic.
Yeah. So, and regarding that, and how do you see, in your perspective, what is the perspective of the Europeans have towards working with multicultural teams right now? Because, as we said, traditionally TYPO3 has been, and this is a question for everyone. Do you see the TYPO3 community, the global TYPO3 community, to be as one big TYPO3 community, or there is an Arabic community, there is an Indian community, there is an Asian community, an African community, and so on? And what do you think are the best way to integrate this? Because can be possible in the future, for instance, that let's say a person from Africa could jump into a TYPO3 team from Germany and work correctly. So how do you see that?
Well, I see that like as the other systems, as I see in the other systems like WordPress or other platforms which is working for websites. There is one big community for the system, for the CMS, and also there is a small communities which is talking in the same languages. And that you can see it also if you are going to any system community and write, for example, Arabic community, Arab type of Arab WordPress community, so you can find their communities. The thing is, it has nothing to do with each other. There is one big community where they are meeting together, making this like this conference, where they are talking in a global level and talking about the global issues they are facing in the system, but also in the same time, like small communities which is talking the same language. It has nothing to do, of course, with the ethnic. It has to do with the language they are talking, because when you are talking in your mother language, it will be so easy to understand and also to explain your issues or your ideas. So my opinion is it could be this. It could be both of them. Like we have a big community having the whole people, and also small communities which is discussing about small things they are facing in this language or in this community. So that's my opinion. I will leave my mic.
Oduor, you have been championing the open source CMS for quite some time now in Africa, and I would like to know your opinion specifically about this. How do you think open source can help integrate different cultures in working teams? How do you think, not only around the world, but within Africa and African Europeans, and how do you see the African community is as in your vision prepared to integrate with other cultures around the world, working in joint projects and so on?
Thank you very much. I am so happy today to join this discussion on this beautiful TYPO3 event. To answer your question, I think that working in the area of open source has actually made me meet a lot. And I want to give you a funny story about when you started, you talked about this Chilean, about people not. We are working with the president of Joomla for the CMS Africa Summit that we are holding in Kigali, Rwanda. And so English is my second language. My first language is Luo. So in Luo language, my culture, there is no please. The word please does not exist, all right? So when I started, of course, learning English, please is something you don't use a lot when you're speaking, because it is not your original language. So you are talking with the president of Joomla, and every time I would ask her something, I would not add the word please. And for a long time, she was like, what is going on with this guy? Why is it that he never puts the word please when he's asking for something? And so she was really pissed off, actually. So she went to Aswani. One of the guys that Aswani is now in the board of, and he works at CMS Africa. They asked, does Oduor Jagero have some spite for me? Why is it that every time I talk to him or he asks something, he doesn't say the word please? What is going on? And it was like, so I know the reason why he's not saying please, because please is not in his mother tongue. So the word please doesn't exist. So when they ask something, they just ask it. There is a tone on how you ask this, and it will sort of cover the word please in it. And so that was a big deal. And she was like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. The guy that doesn't say please at all, So that is when you talk about culture and working together, I really understand. I've worked with several people. I've worked with Daniel. I've worked with people from all over the world, Germans, Polish people, Americans, and every time there is a culture shock when I talk, when I chat with them, because there are some things they need to understand. Like, for example, in my language, you can say, there are things you can say, but when you translate them in English, then they come out as something that is very insensitive, right? But then to answer your question specifically, open source basically brings people together. First of all, even when you are speaking the same language and you are in the open source community, there is some kind of love and some kind of good vibe that you get when you're doing open source together. And the good thing about open source is that there is a lot of sharing of information. And that is why I think there is a lot of cultures and barriers broken down. When we go to CMS Africa, we are speaking one language. We are people from Drupal, we are people from WordPress, we are people from Magento, from TYPO3. And if you are Chris, you are coming to ask us a question from somebody who is from Kenya. You know, what connects you guys are the things that you are learning and the things that you want to know. And so I think that open source really brings people together. And what brings people together when you talk about open source is the sharing of information. Having a zeal, having a passion to know this thing. So it doesn't matter who you are talking with, so long as this person knows what you're talking about, so long as this person understands this plugin, reason why plugin the page breaks, or when you have this, there is a breakage. So you don't want to know whether it's German fast, you want to know whether he knows how to solve your problem. So the moment then you're already friends. It doesn't matter whether it's German, it doesn't matter whether it's Damascus or he's from Damascus, or he's from Congo Brazzaville, or he's from Bayern Munich. We have had such a huge and close friendship with a gentleman from Poland called Kuba Zolinski. He's the guy that came to our event the first time we had it 7 years ago, and he has always come to our event. He's almost how to speak some of the languages that we have in Kenya, or some African language, just because we have been the area of persons together. And I think there is a lot of bubbling love when people talk about persons, because when we talk about open, people are suddenly thinking about the love and the sharing of knowledge. Yeah.
Thank you, Oduor. Thomas, you have a lot of experience in multicultural settings. How have you seen so my question for you is oriented more into maybe the aspect of the management. I think that because of the pandemic, multicultural remotes, as I said, will become the norm, right? I know making predictions right now is a little adventurous since we don't really know much what's going on. But how in your experience setting cultural multicultural environments, how critical do you think cultural differences really are? Do you think that this is a problem, a huge problem for managers, or is something that maybe solves itself with time? Or how do a manager prepares for something like that?
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the event. Thanks for the question. I don't think you can really be prepared as a manager for this. So when I started my first intercultural project management outside of my own country in India, I was prepared. Oh, there's some background noise. Someone should be on mute, please. Okay. I was prepared with an intercultural session, and when I realized in India what to manage, then I learned, okay, what I learned was just the basics. And I learned that, yeah, of course, it impacts a lot the projects, and it can endanger projects, especially when it comes to openness, transparency, when it comes to horizontal management, when it comes, so horizontal versus hierarchical, and when it comes to the capacity management inside the projects, time management, structure. So all these things, so you come with, yeah, a backpack full of these things when you come from Germany. So you have learned about these things, you know how these things work, usually you're used to it. And things which are very obvious for yourself don't work anymore. You come in this environment, you have, maybe you got trained for 1 week intercultural project management, something like this. So body language, yada, 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 so some things. And then you are thrown in, or you would be thrown into this environment, and you learn whatever you bring with your own culture is worth a little, I would say, because you're an alien in a different environment and you have to adapt. and you have to figure out how you can bring in your practices and your, I would say, best values into this environment. And if you don't do, then you would endanger the project, because a cultural clash can easily bring a project like any other project on risk. And this is something you definitely have to manage. And you manage it by learning, and you manage it by teaching. That's the only way you can do it.
Thinking that in terms of organizations, that there are good practices between organizations that might be set up to make the process smoother. For instance, I've seen that some organizations are working with cultural sensitive days, where people just share about their cultural differences and so on. Do you think that there are things like that that organizations can do to prepare, or?
That might definitely work, but so the situation here is here different. So I work as an alien outside. So I'm just, I would say, a seed or a small virus, or however you call it. And I'm there kind of alone. And I think cultural awareness days, big bunch of people, either one way or the other way around, and you have already some kind of bigger community. Then these things might work. For myself alone, or for only a few people, I think the only way to do is to be open, adapt, and raise awareness for adoption with everyone around you. So it's more, I say, I don't think that real structural organizational approaches would work. It is more how you adapt yourself. So it's a lot of work for a single person. And this is, I think, the main. So I think the main takeaway for me after some projects, you need to adapt. So, and you need to raise that awareness. And structural or organizational things, of course, can work, but for this you need to have more people.
All right, thank you. So, Chris, you focus is on the corporate world in Southeast Asia. So, particularly in software, as we know, there is a big boom in outsourcing in Asia, where they sell services to other parts of the world, which means multicultural projects are very, very normal for you. We also know that Asian culture, with, for example, the European culture, is extremely different. It's as different as you might think. But yet this integration of Asian companies into the West world or to other countries work at some extent. So why do you think? How do you think that Asian companies will deal with cultural differences, with working with companies from other countries, even inside Asia? Because as well as in Africa, the cultural differences between each country it's huge. So how do you see that the Asian companies deal with cultural differences on a daily basis, and what do you think that, let's say, Africans or Latin Americans could learn from the ways Asians do things? And if you think that this capacity to work with multicultural teams is something that can be coached, that can be taught, or is it something that it goes with each one person, with your capacity of tolerance and so on?
Hi, also as well, and thank you for having me as well. So there were several questions in there, right? So, so number one is maybe my mostly focus is not necessarily only on the outsourcing companies, and I think that here in Vietnam there is a special case, as there is actually a shift from outsourcing to product development companies. So there's a lot of foreign companies investing into Vietnam to build up their software capacity, right? For example, product companies who don't want to build up that same team in San Francisco, as an example, where they probably pay like 50 to 100 times what they could pay here in Vietnam. Just the shift is already happening, which makes maybe Vietnam already, as you mentioned, a bit of a special case as opposed maybe to China or to India, from what I hear, right? So I do not have all the numbers or all the statistics everywhere. I do think that this shift into the remote, that we're still in a, we said, well, maybe the pandemic has it a little bit increased, but if you're looking from the Vietnamese point of view, we are already living in a very diverse culture, right? So there's a lot of, in the last years, a lot of like introduction of Western culture coming into Vietnam, right? So especially like franchises and also software companies coming here to building up this westernized environment. But what is really interesting is also that this has a little bit impacted the way universities work here in Vietnam. I have seen a shift to more creative thinking, away from just coding thinking, which helps to work with like more product companies than just the outsourcing companies, and which has helped to build a little bit of sense of a startup environment, which means that the hierarchy, when you're looking at the younger population, they still have this maybe in the traditionally in their background, but in companies, if I'm working myself and teaching, coaching, mentoring into the agile way of working, I have a much easier time with younger people who know what project work is, who have been working maybe with other people at international companies or international universities, so who know how to run those projects. I don't feel I'm in the position to actually say what other continents could learn from Asia. I know too less about how other continents or like Arabic world, African world, or South American world working exactly, right? So I can't really say some things. What I see here in Asia is really working well is a really good sense of, how to call it, efficiency. In a sense, as a German, it's weird that I say that, right? But this the sense of getting things done and high productive, right? If you're asking international companies, their factories in Vietnam, for example, are among the best in terms of productivity and efficiency. What is lacking a little bit is still creativity, right? So kind of like, if it's a startup, it's mostly a copy of something which they know, which is existing and is working there. I do believe a little bit that intercultural cooperation, as similar as Thomas said, starts number one with yourself, and number two is impossible if we are afraid of the unknown, right? And then we can't generate trust if we don't know what's going on. So I think what you said is a cultural diversity days, right? And inviting and gaining more context and contextualize people working together will generate more knowledge and about the other person, and I think that can increase trust a lot. That's why, and I think if you have the trustful environment, you can actually work well together. I think that the culture is actually completely second. I hope I answered all questions.
Yes. So the next thing I would like us to discuss is this idea of building attachment to the organizations, because now that remote multicultural teams, that you have people working from all over the world on the same projects, how do you think that or if you think that you can build the level of commitment that companies and organizations usually look for with their employees or the people participating in the projects? Because creating a business culture, creating a working culture is usually a very big priority for organizations. And what happens is that people that work remotely, even if we're talking right face to face on the webcam, the psychological distance between someone that is working from Europe and someone that is working from Chile exists. So how do you feel? How do you make that? Or do you think that it's possible to make people to feel that they are part, that they belong into an organization without seeing each other in person all the time, and sharing so much different cultures. What can teams do to push this feeling of belonging on their employees? Thomas, if you would like to chime in.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, events like this help a lot. So, and I saw in the chat again something like open source, but open source is a culture as well. So open source or open source community can replace or overlay, not replace, but overlay different, and this helps a lot. So you can establish a community, and being part of this community, you have to organize events like this. What we figured out as well, so what helps or what helped in our environment, we switched from a waterfall approach to agile approach, and we are running this quite extensively. And the artifacts from agile management, like daily scrums, virtual scrums, then establishment of communication channels, which we borrowed from open source like Slack or so. This helps a lot establishing, I would say, overarching communities. And this helps to establish a culture, a project culture, and this helps mitigation or to mitigate the risks I talked about before. So this is how we did it, and this is how it works for us. I think it's similar, or other projects have other ideas, but I think it's can be a pattern.
All right, Oduor? I think you're muted, Oduor.
Ask the question. Do you mind asking the question again, please? I think
yes. I'm talking about the now that multicultural remote teams are becoming more and more common. I say that organizations are having the problem that in order for you to maintain people attached to your company or to your organization or to your projects, you need to create some sort of belonging, some sense of belonging, of pertinence into the organization. And now managers are struggling to create this sensation with their employees because everyone is scattered around the world with different cultures and working remotely. And do you think that it's possible to create a remote working culture in which people feel like they belong and they all do not feel like freelancers, for instance?
All right. I think it's a very difficult situation that people are finding themselves right now in terms of still making people belong to that community. Of course, even at CMS Africa or Core Media, we have been working basically from home or coming to the office once in a while. Of course, Africa is not very much affected with COVID as the rest of the world, but still, I think what needs to be done in terms of making people belong is that people need to reach out to each other in the morning, in the afternoon, and just checking each other out and saying, what are you up to? What are some of the things? Because basically what I've realized from my experience with working with a lot of people at CMS Africa, at Core Media, or even around the world, connecting with people in CMS Africa, I've realized that you can never tell what is going on the other side until you actually reach out to those people. You know, so as somebody who is a leader in CMS, as somebody who is a leader at Core Media, I think the best thing for us to always do is to reach out to people and, you know, ask them how they're doing, what they're up to, the situation they are in at a given time, and that I think gives them a sense of belonging, that somewhere was thinking about how I'm doing, because we have realized that there is a lot of even stress and depression setting in because people are no longer able to see each other, people are no longer able to laugh, people are no longer able to share drinks, and a lot of these things setting in, and people are not feeling themselves. You know, you're not able to take the metro anymore, see faces. So I think the best idea is to just reach out to people, hop into a video call once in a while, you know, hear each other's voice, I think that is the only way that you make people, to get involved. And I also think that it works both ways. Somebody cannot just be checking on you every day and you're not checking on them at all. So I think it is a sort of returning the favor. When somebody is talking to you when they have not talked for a week, it's your turn now to reach out to them and talk to them. But I think that it is not easy, and we have to find out ways of making it easy. We have to like for example, some of my friends contracted COVID here in Kenya. I had to make ways of out to them and finding out how they are doing. So it is a matter of basically reaching out to people and understanding people. And if somebody has not done something that was expected of them, because you're not seeing them in the office, you cannot tell what is going on the other side. So it's important that you find respond to people who are slow or slacking with some sort of love, not being too hard, not being too harsh on each and every person that you're working together with. And basically just, treating each other as a community or people who are working together even though you're not in the same space physically. Yeah.
Thank you, Abdulhamid.
Yeah, I totally agree with Oduor, and that's exactly what I wanted to say. It's of course like I would say like in every solution we find in our life, in our technology to communicate with each other, there is an issue coming or there is a problem coming. I agree like totally what you said. It's a right, and that's also my opinion, because I think like working together, it's not only working and tasks and duties and I don't know meeting and video calls. It has a lot to do with the physical touch and talk and looking to each other and seeing what you are doing, what you are working. Also, there is a lot of this kind of things of questions during the work where you needed the quick help. So you need for a small issue to solve it, and you don't want to write an email which is longer than the issue that you have and wait for an answer, or I don't know, call him in a video and he's I don't know in the bathroom and he cannot answer you. So so what I mean, like there is really a quick a relationship between the employees and their management, where in physically you see it, but in remotely you cannot see it that much. Of course, remotely it's making people or employees near to each other, because you can see my private life. For example, I am sitting right now and talking to you in a video, but you see also my home. So you see how I am drinking my coffee, or how I am eating during the meeting or something like that. So you see how I am dressing in my home. Of course, I'm not dressing like that, but during the work, you see how I am doing. And I know there is a lot of companies who are making also beside the work activities together, like yoga or some sport together, where they are opening the webcam and sitting in the front of the laptop and making the exercises together. But my opinion, again, it's not okay. It could solve some issues and problems in the current time where we are dealing with the COVID-19 or other issues. If I'm, as you said, if I'm in other country and I cannot go to my company or to the place where I am working, yeah, it's totally good and solving a lot of problems. But in the same time, you cannot say like I have a company where all of my employees are international, like from different countries, and we never meet. I cannot say like there is no loyalty in the end in this company. I would say like that, or it's small, it's not that large in the company. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. And Chris, have you detected that this is an issue right now for companies as you see that might be turning to something important from them in the long run, at least on the sense that keeping talent, for instance, that people actually start to feel a sense of attachment just to the companies on this working remote or abroad.
Interestingly enough, I actually thought that is constantly an increasing problem, even not in remote, right? So I think that too often, so I agree with what has been said, and there's a lot what the individual can do. But I think too many companies, they don't look at culture as a strategic investment, and they rather look at it as something which happens. But unfortunately, I usually use the picture of a garden, right, for culture. So a garden can grow if you attend to it or not, and it grows in the direction you take care of it. If you don't take care of it from a more strategic idea, to decide where you have the flowers and where you have the trees and where you have the lawn, or you just let it grow somewhere, it will happen. So culture is something that happens, that is not something we build or we grow. So we need to adjust and culture that into some sense, and values on the wall are not enough. Okay, and we need to exemplify that values. We need to know what behaviors we are looking for and how we build that culture. And I think this is important, not only as an individual to look at, and because if we, for example, if we have weekly check-ins, right, and we have the video calls, but we don't have the common alignment as the company where we're going to, those meetings are a little bit a waste of time. Yeah, we have a good time hanging out with each other, showing how we drink our drinks and so on. That's awesome. But if you're not going into the right direction or the common direction as a company, that's not. Then it might be kind of like that people feel kind of like, or we lose the people on the way. And I think there's a lot of companies can learn from open source communities, because open source communities are driven by a purpose. I mean, it's something people do in their free time. It's something, right? So there's this famous Dan Pink video, Daniel Pink, on what really motivates us. You have probably seen that already. And I think this is very often what we forget, that we give a purpose so people are empowered to actually run for that. And this is, for me, an organizational or a top-down problem, not a bottom-up problem. Bottom-up, people come and they're motivated. Right, the people is, how can we keep that going? This is a little bit my point of view. So I think maybe through that remote working, it might increase the problem of attachment or detachment. But I think already with more and more millennials, right, who are not only going to work for money but working for a higher purpose, if you don't give them a purpose, they leave you. And I think that's a long-term development already, and not only through the pandemic.
All right, thank you very much. Well, since we are running out of time, I would like to give the last few minutes to see if maybe we have a question from the audience. And also, in the meantime, I will let you know that we have the speed networking sessions after this. We're gonna have an hour, half an hour for that, and half an hour also for our teamwork. That's called The Best of Our Country, where we will be working on a joint project, building something very interesting with the images of our respective countries to enjoy. So just wait for a couple of minutes, see if somebody has a question. It's also, in the meantime, thank you very much for this very diverse panel. It was also an honor for me to be able to share with people from such diverse backgrounds and cultures. And I believe that this is the way it should be. This is the way that the TYPO3 community should be, and the open source culture should be. So let this be a glimpse of the future. All right. So thank you very much.